Major consultancy firm is warning Australia's economy is on a knife's edge due to the RBA's interest rate hiking cycle. Joining us live now, the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry Chief Executive, Andrew McKellar. Andrew, thanks for your time this morning. So are we headed for a consumer recession as forecast by Deloitte?
Good morning, Pete. Look, I think the report presents some conclusions which are very consistent with the evidence that we are seeing. Certainly, I think there is evidence that those 10 interest rate increases that they've had a real impact. And in particular, that's showing up for households and for small businesses. Small businesses have had to contend with rising costs, rising energy prices, increased interest rates. It's putting a real squeeze on some parts of the economy, and I think there is a concern that if interest rates were to go any higher at this point in time, it could inflict some real damage.
So, well, on that, if it were to happen, what would be the fallout?
Well, I do think there's a risk that we would see more small businesses starting to struggle. The conclusion in this report is that many households are already getting into a situation of negative cash flow. That would get worse. So it would impact demand. It would impact also the supply side of the economy. And I think there would be risks that it could impact on economic growth, and ultimately we could see the labour market really coming off the boil.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was my next point. Unemployment, obviously that would rise if it were to happen.
Well, I mean, we've had a very strong labour market, and that's a great thing, but we want to keep it that way. So we don't want to see a situation where unemployment is rising rapidly. We've still got inflationary pressures in the economy. That's a combination that we don't want to risk.
Were those 2 hikes this year necessary?
Look, I think this report suggests they weren't. We certainly agree that the Reserve Bank did the right thing by pausing last month. And again, I think we would urge them to keep pausing again as they meet at the next month. We don't think at this point we need to keep rising interest rates. Inflationary pressures hopefully are coming off. We've got to be careful not to overcook this and do more damage to the economy than is necessary.
Well, just onto matters involving the Treasurer. Aside from all of that, Andrew, Jim Chalmers, he's got a couple of things he's looking at because he's got to find some money, basically. One of them is increasing the profits on gas producers with potentially an overhaul of the petroleum rent tax. Would you support that?
Look, I think business would be very wary about those sorts of options. We think that overwhelmingly the emphasis in the budget needs to be on the expenditure side. We'd be very wary of seeing taxes being increased at this point in time. In particular, in that area with the PRRT, one of the things we need at the moment is we need a stronger energy supply. If we are risking doing more damage to some of those future projects, then I think that would be a step in the wrong direction.
People will argue, and members of the government argue too. I mean, they've said this all along. I mean, they're still making huge amounts of profits, so can't that be reined in to the point where they will still make a lot of profits, just not as much?
Well, and they're paying significant tax as well. Look, the fundamental issue here is this is all about how do we attract that international investment. We have to compete for that. Many of these projects are under a lot of pressure. We've just gone through a process where the government has been setting this safeguard mechanism that will have a big impact on a number of those projects as well. So I think it's got to be one step at a time. We've got to make sure that we get the right balance in those policy outcomes.
Okay, Andrew McKellar, appreciate your time. Thank you. We'll talk to you again soon.